was a vile tract filled with accusations of avarice and greed, filthy lucre, accusations of womanizing, and even the lowest of the low, an accusation of sodomy. It was that biography and those accusations that spurred Calvin's friend and colleague Theodore Beza to write the first real biography of this man of God. Beza and the other colleagues that Calvin had witnessed to Calvin's personal integrity, his uprightness. Beza said, "I've been a witness of him for 16 years, and I think I am fully entitled to say that in this man there was exhibited to all an example of the life and death of the Christian, such as it will not be easy to depreciate, and it will be difficult to imitate." If the minister recently was correct in identifying the great temptations for ministers as sloth, self, sex, and silver, he was not learning those temptations by observing the life and ministry of John Calvin. Calvin was personally and morally upright. He was selfless, thrust into the limelight, whose audience was the world. He did not force himself upon the churches. Before he died, he left specific instructions that his gravesite not even be marked, lest people venerate him rather than God. Self, he would have shuddered to hear that the system of the Christian faith as we have it, or the doctrines of grace as we hold them, would be called after his own name. And though I'm certainly in favor of this birthday celebration of the brother, I think I know what he would have said had we proposed it to him. He was not a selfish man, but a selfless man. He wrote, "A man who knows himself has little self-esteem." When he was asked what were the basic precepts of the Christian life, he gave this illustration about the great orator Demosthenes, who, when Demosthenes was asked what are the great principles of eloquence, said, in the first place, pronunciation. In the second place, pronunciation. And in the third place, pronunciation. And we thought the realtors were original in that little witticism. And with that illustration, Calvin said, would you ask me what are the great principles of the Christian faith and Christian life? He said, in the first and the second and the third place, they are humility. Humility. The last words before his death included, God had pity on me. His personal uprightness included in the second place sexual purity. Read the stories of his marriage. I know the booksellers in the back have books about Calvin's relationship to his dear wife, Idelette. You may read them and hear the truth of the matter. Before he was married, Calvin was very hesitant to take a wife. He wanted to be single. He said, I shall not belong to those who are accused of attacking Rome like the Greeks fought Troy, only to be able to take a wife. When finally he began looking for a wife, because he saw the godly marriages of a couple of his friends, he made it known to his friends who were looking for him, quote, always keep in mind what I look for in a wife. I am none of those insane lovers who embrace also the vices of those with whom they are in love, where they are smitten at first sight with a fine figure. This only is the beauty that allures me, if she is chaste, if not too fussy or fastidious, if economical, patient, and if there is hope that she will be interested about my health. He was sexually moral. And then after his wife died, when he was only 40, and he spoke about how unique she was, he pledged that he would from then on, quote, lead a solitary life. And he did, chastely, for 14 more years. He was the husband of one wife. He was a one-woman man. He said about Idelette, She was the best companion of my life. When he lived in Geneva and the people mistreated him and said evil things about him, it hurt. But when they assaulted his wife, that's what he would not bear. As to silver, some of his enemies accused him of filthy lucre, but most knew better. He was not rich, and he was not interested in riches. Calvin was himself embarrassed at one of the suggestions for a wife because she was a wealthy German woman, and he was afraid that her wealth would be an offense to the congregation in Geneva, not her. Later, Calvin said, "If some will not be persuaded while I am alive, my death at all events will show that I have not been a money-making man." And who hasn't heard the Pope's purported statement about Calvin? Quote, "The strength of that heretic consisted in this, that money never had the slightest charm for him." And then concluded, the Pope did, by saying, "If I had such servants, my dominion would extend from sea to sea." They knew better. Calvin was not interested in filthy lucre. He preached it, and he practiced what he preached. Slothful, running through that little quartet of the vices allegedly of ministers. Slothful? There are very few who could keep up with this man and his tireless devotion to the work of the pastorate. He slept very little, probably didn't need much, probably didn't know what a vacation was, had few hobbies and almost no leisure. He was a worker. He was a workhorse. He preached 7 and more times per week. He lectured to seminarians. He wrote letters in the thousands. He authored books. He visited the sick. He led consistory meetings. He met with troubled refugees. He established schools. He wrote church orders. He advised deacons and hospital directors. He worked. And when on his deathbed, he still wanted to work by dictating to one of his servants. And a friend said to him, "Calvin, now you need to rest." Calvin responded, "What? Would you have Christ find me slothful when he came?"